Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising books comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, new release, The Joy of Cruising Again, as well as other fun, informative global cruise personalities. It is the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests. If you hear about a cruise that interests you, book it at www.thejoyofcruising.net. It helps support the channel through our partnership with Where's Walters Travel. We really appreciate your feedback, so leave us a text. Paul can't reply, but he may read your text on air.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul. And this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I am delighted to welcome San Diego's Bob and Holly, creators in 2020 of Innocents Abroad, YouTube channel, Facebook group, and page and Instagram platform. Their goal is to grow appreciation for discovery, diversity, and conversation about travel with a concentrated focus on cruising. Bob and Holly note that engaging with other cultures is no small thing to us. Breaking down cultural barriers is what drives our travel. To underscore that, their catchphrase, which I love, is an optimistic outlook of humanity through travel and exposure to other cultures. Quite the way with words, Bob and Holly. Some of our literature-minded listeners recognize that their brand, Innocents Abroad, recalls someone else with quite the way with words, Mark Twain. It is a homage to Bob's favorite writer. The channel was named for Mark Twain's outlook on equality. In his 1869 book, The Innocents Abroad, Twain wrote, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime." By the way, this was also the epigraph set at the opening of my second cruising book, Cruising Interrupted. On their channel, Innocents Abroad is serious about their craft. Their style is visual storytelling, cinematography of very high quality, combined with choreographed audio and historical facts. How a film looks and sounds is very important to them. Journalistic integrity is of utmost importance. They emphasize that every cruise and land trip has been and will be out of their own pocket, without exception. They wouldn't even accept free Wi-Fi to facilitate their vlogging about their travels. Bob and Holly have an amazing cruise background. 61 cruises to date, including very high-end cruise lines, with plenty more booked. In fact, what motivated me to reach out to Innocents Abroad, Bob and I are friends and followers on social media, he had posted that he and Holly were on a 120-day grand tour of cruising in Europe and a wee bit in the Caribbean. They just arrived home, and I am delighted to bring Bob and Holly to the listeners. Welcome, Bob and Holly, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So how you both doing?
We're good. I think we're back on our own time zone now.
Little bit. It took about 5 days to adjust from this European. I don't know if it's epic or madness or what side of that argument I come down on, but I think we're back to normal now.
Yeah, sound pretty epic to me. Good to virtually meet you. I am envious of your cruising background. But before we talk about it, tell our listeners about yourself, where you're from, where you live, whatever you would like to share.
Well, we're both from native Californians, and we reside in San Diego. What would we like to share? Well, for my sins, I'm a longtime San Francisco 49ers fan, and Holly, San Diego Chargers, mind you. She doesn't acknowledge that they've gone to LA. I think she would leave me for Dan Fouts, even though he's probably pushing 70 by now. But yeah, it's I guess that's one thing to open with.
I like both of those teams. They're not my favorites, but I'm the kind of guy. I'm not like just stuck on one favorite team. So there are teams that I like, and there are teams that I hate with a vengeance.
Well, when it comes to, having said that, when it comes to baseball, I'm required to hate the Dodgers. But other than that, I don't really dislike anybody. But the Dodgers, no, I can't watch them.
First things first, starting with an overview of the itinerary, give us the glorious details and highlights of the dream journey you just completed.
So the first 2 weeks of July were a 2-week cruise on Viking from Istanbul to Venice. And I say that middle piece, or that second third, if you will, the vacation, because that's what we'd originally booked. We kind of planned what we were normally going to do: come over to Europe, do a cruise for a couple of weeks, see some of our British friends on the way home. Bob's your uncle, there's a vacation. Well, so in February of 22, we were on a Viking Ocean cruise to Northern Lights. And as one does, we booked a feature cruise. And that was this one that the first half of July that we just completed. No problem. That was the plan 2.5 years later. Well, about 10 months later, we went to Antarctica. This is December of 22 now. And the ship we were on, Seabourn Venture, had a mechanical issue that arguably they should have disclosed. They didn't till people were already in country. And in order to, the basic, long story short, Seabourn was extremely generous in compensating people for their trouble. We all missed South Georgia Island, but in fairness, we got 5 extra days landings on the continent. So I was completely happy with that and the fact that we got compensated. Well, it was in Future Cruise Credit. The Future Cruise Credit had a use by date of 2024 December. We already had 23 pretty well locked up. So we're like, okay, we got this Viking cruise in July of 24. What can we do around that? Where are they in Europe? And we basically fit a Seabourn cruise either side of the existing Viking booking. The first one starting mid-June. And that was basically Iberia and ending in Amsterdam. Well, no problem. So we got that set up. We'll come to Europe in June. Well, then Gary Bembridge, who all of your listeners will know, Gary booked was organizing a group cruise the first week of April of 24 and in the Caribbean. Oh, sure. Yeah, we'll go hang out. Let's go jump on that. And then it just morphed into madness. Go to the Caribbean on Gary's group cruise and then come home and then go back to Europe 6 weeks, or go to Europe 6 weeks later. No, that would have been too easy. We decided to we found a transatlantic that left Fort Lauderdale the same day Gary's cruise ended. We ended up in the Netherlands, and then we had about 2.5 weeks to kill before the Seabourn cruise started. Well, I'm sorry, we had about 4 weeks to kill. This basically all of May. So a lot of our British friends have been pushing us to try P&O for the first time. So we did that. In the last half of May, we ended up going on 19 nights on our first P&O cruise. So we spent about 2 weeks in England after Amsterdam, after the Netherlands, after the TA, and then our first it's trying to remember it so far back. Then we did our first P&O cruise with a lot of our friends from Britain, a lot of vloggers and a lot of just personal friends. And then we started the Seabourn bit, and then it just sort of rolled from there. And we had 8 days in between Seabourn's first Seabourn cruise and the end of the Viking cruise and that last Seabourn, which basically was a tail end on Novation. Then we were going to come home. How do you spend 8 days? Well, you want to go to Tuscany or you want to fit a cruise in there? So we found a Queen Victoria med that, yeah, okay, who wants to spend a week in Tuscany when you can go on another cruise? Sometimes I think about what we put together, and it does tend to lean more towards madness than it was epic. I got a lot of history. That's my jam. I got a lot of cool things in history, and everything was an artifact. Instead of another bloody church, it was another bloody archaeological site. And Viking was perfect for that, but it was just extremely personally rewarding, to say nothing of content, but it was very rewarding. And I'm glad we did it. We will not be doing it of that magnitude again. We'll come home for a little bit.
So I lost count at back to back to back to back to back, I think.
Well, there were, and that's fair to have that reaction. We're gone for 120 days total from home. And of those 120 days, there were 84 cruising days. So just about 2/3 of it, we were on a ship. But most of it, except for the tail end, most of it was 3 or 4 days here, little bits of land in between each of those cruises for the most part. But it was 7 cruises in that 120 days and over 5 different cruise lines. And that just made up the entire itinerary at one end of it or another.
So I have a question and then a request. So first, the question: are you guys hiring a administrative assistant? Because I'll put in for the job.
No, but we will keep you in mind if we. It was
do that. And
I don't think we'll be doing something of that magnitude again. We'd spread it out. I love epic journeys. We love expeditions, but I don't think we will not string that much together in one continuous being gone period.
The request is, all of those great cruises. Give us some highlights. So the listeners heard me say earlier, I envy your cruising background. Well, you can easily see why. You started off with Viking and Seabourn. I mean, those are cruise lines on my bucket list and a lot of listeners' bucket lists. So give us some highlights, those various cruises. I've never been, and most listeners, I'm sure, in the U.S. haven't been on P&O. So say a little bit about that. Just give us some highlights.
Holly?
Oh boy. Well, P&O was interesting because it's very British. So we were kind of curious to see what that was like. And even though we kind of saw the Britishness of it, it wasn't as drastic as I guess I thought it was going to be. There were just a few minor little things that were different, but nothing that, spoiled the trip or anything like that. But I thought that was very interesting. The ports on that particular one was, a lot of Scandinavia, went to a lot of new places that we had never been before, quaint villages. And
in fact, this whole 120-day thing, we only repeated one port period, and that was Zeebrugge. A lot of the ports we'd been to on other cruises, but this whole 120-day epic thing this summer, we literally only repeated one port, and that was really important just to try some variety.
Yeah. But even so, I mean, the overall trip, we went to so many new places for us. And toward the end, we were in, Sicily and Sardinia and Corsica, all these little islands off of Italy that we had never touched on before. I thought they were wonderful. I enjoyed that so much more than I thought I was going to.
Talk about Viking or Seabourn then.
Viking was great because there was, we started off in Istanbul, which we hadn't gone to before. We spent a couple of days there, saw some great sights there. Then we went down into the Greek islands, went to a few islands we hadn't been to before. The, archaeological sites and stuff were fascinating. Then it moved on to the Adriatic and saw some things there. It was just very epic. It was just very eye-opening.
In fact, I think you just interviewed the cruise boys. They flew to Athens and joined us for that second week. So that was fun to cruise with them.
Good. Say something about Gary's cruise. That was his first group cruise, right?
It was. And it was, in my opinion, he chose the right size. He had, I think it was 40 signed up and something like that. Gary's group cruise was very good in that it was a great, so he's, obviously he's running the show, but it was a great way to administer a group cruise, in my opinion. Here's some stuff that's set up. You guys want to come and go. There was no spreadsheet and you have to be here and you're expected to be here. They were, whether it was dining or activities or games or raffles or cocktail hour, it was, here's all this stuff. And if I see you once or if I see you every day, you do you. And it was very disarming. So I thought it was run perfectly.
Let's see. So you mentioned Viking. You mentioned, give us a highlight or two on Seabourn.
I love Seabourn.
Seabourn's ultra luxury, right?
It is. In my opinion, in that category, they're kind of it's hard to say, it's like the bargain basement of it. They just start, I think they scratch the surface of ultra luxury, and then you have Silversea and Regent. I can't speak to those. We've never been on them. Seabourn is amazing. We've been on, I guess, 6 now. We go on maybe every 2 or 3 years. that's just what we can afford. But Seabourn is different, not so much because they're ultra luxury. And this, for me, what I get out of it isn't that the ships are really pretty and they're works of art, and they are. They've got really small ships. They've got not even medium-sized ships, 450 passengers or 600 passengers. That's it. That's their biggest ship. But for me, this serves the passenger to space ratio. You can make the case that your per diem is you're paying for it. So even if the ship was full, 600 passengers or 450 on their smaller ones, you are never, I mean, it's not Carnival. You're not shoulder to shoulder with anybody. You have an incredible amount of space. Everybody knows your name from like the second day. They self promote as country club cruising, and I never felt it was any stuffy. Everybody's just totally chill. There are no formal nights, and the only thing they don't include is shore excursions, but everything else is included. My thing is small ports you can get into, and the fact that there is just, it's almost like Viking in regard to, they have a living room. You kind of feel like you're at home, albeit, wooden glass and all this posh stuff. Seabourn is very, very lovely. But again, is it value for money? Not necessarily, in my opinion, because you're paying for that passenger to space ratio. So there are pros and cons, but overall, they're my second favorite cruise line.
Who's your first?
By a small margin, Viking. This one here, Holly really likes them quite a lot.
Yeah, Viking is my vibe. It's perfect for me. It's my speed, and the ships, even though I think the only knock that I have on Viking on their ships are they're carbon copies. They don't really have like a personality.
They don't have a soul at all.
Everything looks exactly the same from ship to ship. Although, I mean, when you're on one, you know exactly where you're going on the next one. But it's a very comfortable place to be. I mean, the living room looks like a living room.
There's a space called the living room, and it's like you're living in Scandinavia. It's basically IKEA with a little bit. It's not really a luxurious cruise. It's like you're living in IKEA. It's very, very, very efficient. The rooms are expertly designed, but they're, like Holly said, Viking are they're a little stale interior. There's nothing going on, and I mean literally nothing until about 4 p.m. in a day. So if you had a day at sea, you go to lectures or what have you. Their thing is overwhelmingly about information. They are constantly giving lectures, high quality lectures like Cunard do, and they're very, very much itinerary driven. Get off the ship, go explore, get some knowledge, and then come back and we'll have a lecture about it or whatever. So if people are thinking about their first Viking cruise and they dig a little bit of, PBS or BBC kind of, let's go explore culture or another archaeological site or some historical thing, Viking might be the way to go for them, possibly.
Now, speaking of Cunard, one of your cruises was on a Cunard ship, right?
On this summer, it was, yes.
What was that again, Queen?
That was Queen Victoria in basically the middle of July.
Okay, talk about that. Now, you had been on Cunard before?
We had been on once. We'd been on Queen Elizabeth from Tokyo to Vancouver, a Trans-Pacific. The service was really good. We had tried their grills for the first time. I 100% don't think it was value for money, but we wanted to try it once. The ship inside, it's just like P&O Aurora, in my opinion. The ships inside were immaculate and beautiful, but outside, Lord have mercy, they needed paint. Rust spots. It was really the aft section of Queen Victoria. Visually from the outside, wasn't much of a looker. They just hadn't got a paint job in a while. Inside, they were just stunning. The service was really good. The public spaces, what P&O might call a crow's nest, or Commodore Club. It's the observation lounge, forward observation lounge. Many cruise lines have that. Every public space was stunning. It's all pretty much Art Deco, very 1930s-ish sort of vibe, and they're just beautiful. They're beautiful ships inside.
Mm-hmm. Now, what line was Gary Bembridge's cruise on?
That was Holland America, specifically Eurodam.
Okay. I should remember that because he was just on the show a few weeks ago. Holland America, Eurodam. So have you been on other Holland America ships?
We've been on two. We've been on two of their Pinnacle class ships.
Oh, I should know. I should know the answer to that because I recently was watching your Rotterdam videos.
Oh, the ship tour. Yeah, it's
Yeah, with a lot of excitement, a lot of anticipation because I'm booked on Rotterdam in early in 25. So
nice.
Great.
I like the Pinnacle class ships because they're bigger. They're the newest class of ship. That's I want to say New Statendam, but somebody can correct me. But it's Koningsdam and help me out, Koningsdam and Rotterdam, and there's one other one, New Statendam or New Amsterdam, one of the two. And those are the three newest ships, and a little bit more infrastructure. They have a Grand Dutch Cafe, which is an absolutely lovely, basically it's a coffee house. And I think, in my opinion, second only to Oceania's for cruise ship coffee houses. Eurodam, for being an older ship, I thought was perfect. She was probably in about I think she is probably about the mid to high 80,000 tonnage. So she's not as terribly large, but the layout of the space, their main bar across the fleet is called an ocean bar. It's sort of a midships bar, which is literally what Cunard called theirs, midship bar. But on that class of ship, Eurodam, it spans the width of the atrium. And so you can sit in the bar doing your thing and watch people go by or whatever your thing is. And it's great. We're actually on the newer class of ships, Koningsdam, Rotterdam. It's sort of one side of the ship off of the atrium. So they're just different nuances in design. The rock and roll bits, what they call the music walk, it's much bigger much more, it's just bigger on the Pinnacle class. But I thought Eurodam's was excellent and great use of space. I'd go on that ship again in a heartbeat.
So let's see, what did I miss? We have Viking, Seabourn, Holland America, P&O. What else was in that 120 days?
Of this particular summer, no, that's
it.
all
Okay,
five.
okay.
Yes, yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning. Talk about your first cruise.
Well, our first cruise was in November of 1995. We did a Caribbean cruise on Royal Caribbean's Monarch of the Seas, which I think is office furniture now, right?
Somewhere in a log in Turkey, I think it's been scrapped.
Yeah, she's been scrapped.
So yeah, 95.
How was it?
It was great. Once I got on, it really hit me that our hotel room is moving with us. And we see a new place every day, and you don't have to figure out where to go for dinner because everything is right there. I thought it was wonderful.
How about you, Bob?
I liked Monarch of the Seas. That was my second cruise.
Okay.
It's the first one with her. When I was a wee lad with my parents, my first cruise was in 1981 with Sitmar, which was absorbed by Princess and now is definitely office furniture somewhere. But it's very, very, very ancient. That cruise line's, they haven't been around, I think, in 25, 30 years.
Yeah, I interviewed someone once who went on Sitmar. He was saying they had skeet shooting off the back of the ship, and
yeah, it's old school classic cruising. People used to do that then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very different.
So when you went on that first cruise together, which was Monarch of the Seas, did you get hooked, or did it have to grow on you?
Oh, well,
I think we got hooked, but it was actually a few years before we went on the next one. It was just
life getting in the way,
and just never seemed to figure out where we wanted to go or when. But I think we both really enjoyed it, and we're looking forward to doing another one.
That was 4 years until the next cruise, and just still raising a little one at the time, and decidedly different cruising rate these days. But back then, every 2 or 3 years maybe, and then around 2006 or 7, it just sort of started taking off. We started going more often.
Now, I happen to know that your favorite cruise was Antarctica, 20 nights on Seabourn Venture. So starting with that one, talk about some of your most memorable cruises.
Well, that one was, that one just beyond words. It's so hard to describe what going to Antarctica is like. It's just so majestic and different, and you get to interact with the animal, not really interact, but you're so close to them and you just get to watch them. I could stand there and watch penguins for hours. They are just so entertaining.
That's if you do the landings. Not some cruises.
That's true. That's true.
Some are just sail-bys.
Right. The crew that they hired to explain everything are just spectacular. I learned so much about penguins and ice, and it's just like no other.
It was like a really expensive National Geographic lecture for 3 weeks. It was just amazing.
Yeah, it was. It was just fabulous.
For Antarctica, you had to cross Drake's Passage, right?
Yeah, we never had enough. The particular issue with Venture at the time that I spoke about earlier was the stabilizer, which was not up to scratch. It wasn't fully operational. Even that, on the way down, after the Falklands, we went down to the continent and to begin our landings over the next almost 2 weeks. And there was no issue whatsoever. And I'm retired American Navy, so I never get seasick, but I'm used to choppy waters in some cases. Never had an issue with it whatsoever. We got the Drake Lake, as many people refer to it. On the way back, however, at the very end of the cruise, and we're headed back to Ushuaia, that was some pitching. That was some rock and roll. And there were more than a few people searching around for ginger and green apples, and they losing their lunch, as it were. It was a little rough. That was the Drake Shake, no doubt.
Now, Holly, I take it you are not a Navy veteran. How did you find Drake's Passage?
On the way back, it was rocking and rolling, and usually I do have some issue, but for whatever reason, I had no problem. I don't know if it was because it was rolling and not pitching, or the ships move different ways, up and down or sideways. For whatever reason, it was so bizarre, I didn't have an issue with it. I just sat in the bow lounge and just watched us go up and down. It was great.
Talk about some of your other favorite cruises. I know sometimes when I ask people, what's their favorite cruise, I get a reaction like, that's like asking which one of my kids is my favorite kid. But
well, I hear you. For us, I guess it's easy. No cruise for us ever is a throwaway. It'd be a cheap inside cabin Mexican Riviera or whatever, or something that's god awful expensive. We get something out of each and every cruise. First and foremost, their family vacations before YouTube comes into the equation. Having said that, we are able to pick out favorites. I think after Antarctica, my favorite cruise is, it's a toss-up. I'd have to say Galapagos. Antarctica and Galapagos, which we went to in October of 23 with Celebrity, those are expeditions. I pause a little bit when the use of the term, I don't want to say cruise. They really aren't in the conventional sense. You're moving, you're out and about, or you can sit in your cabin if you wanted to. But to fully take advantage of what the situation is and what they're offering, you're out every day, you're busy, you're doing your thing. And Galapagos, with all the animals, it's just amazing. Totally different, rougher than Antarctica, less pretty, depending on your point of view. But it's just so much different and varied life from island to island, and all done in a week. It was just amazing. After that, it's easy to point to my third, and then it gets a little muddied. The Northern Lights on Viking in February of 22. That worked out really, really well. We had a really good time there.
Now you have mentioned some very exotic destinations, Galapagos and Antarctica, and you also mentioned very high end cruise lines or cruise ships. Do you ever cruise on pretty much? Well, you did with Gary, but I was going to say like mainstream ships, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, NCL. I mean, I know you did Royal Caribbean. That was your first cruise. That was a long time ago. Recently, in the last 5, 6 years, have you done any mainstream cruise lines?
Yes, in the last 5 years, I think Royal Caribbean probably was the
Oh,
first
okay.
10 cruises at least before
Uh-huh.
we started going over to celebrity a little bit back and forth. In the last 5 years, and in a mainstream category, absolutely. A lot of princess and the some celebrity, but quite a lot of princess as well. And Holland America, we've done, well, it's 3 now in Holland America. And I know you might talk about future cruises later, but we're booked on our first MSC cruise in April. So that's going to be in basically the Caribbean out of Miami. And we're definitely willing to try that. We just haven't done a lot of them. We're actually going on World America, and it'll be her second cruise ever. So it's effectively the debut or the week after. Let them work the bugs out. So just looking forward to it. It's a brand new class of ship. World Europa has been out for about a year or so, but this is the second ship in that class.
Talk about Innocents Abroad. What was your motivation to start that?
Well,
This is your question.
yeah. So Bob has always filmed our family vacations, did the whole home movie thing for 30 years. He's always been, capturing what we've been doing on our vacations. And about 7 or 8 years ago, we were getting ready to go on Pacific Princess. At the time, it was their smallest ship.
It's Osmar onward now.
Yeah. But it was their smallest ship. We'd never been on a very small ship like that. So we thought, well, we started going to YouTube for references and getting information about our upcoming vacations. And I said, hey, let's check and see if YouTube has like a ship tour or something about this particular ship. And we found a couple. And I think we were getting seasick just watching them because it wasn't the best quality and stabilization
Yeah.
that's available. And so I basically turned to Bob and said, hey, look, you're going to film this vacation anyway. Why don't you pull out the ship bits and put it together and do a little bit better ship tour? Because obviously people were searching for it. So that's kind of how it got started, sort of.
This is November of 17, and we wouldn't officially start a channel for another just over 2 years, but it was the beginning. It's on our channel. It's just, I don't push that out there because, again, even for me, it's older quality, older style. But that was the motivation to start. Okay, we did this. And we had a lot of our friends, predominantly cruise monkeys, Gary, other people like that. A lot of people that we knew in Britain, some in America, that we took a lot of advice from them, particularly Gavin, Luke, the monkeys. And over the next year or so, just constantly pinging them for advice on starting our own. Got a lot of encouragement from them and other people. So 2 years and 2 months later, finally started our own.
You started Innocents Abroad right before I think you said 2019. So right before the COVID cruise shutdown. I know some of us don't like to bring that word up, but
we started in January of 20. Who knew?
Yeah, January 20, and then I think I was well into my second book. I write cruise books, and my second book, my first was called Joy of Cruising, so my second was going to be titled, real creatively, More Joy of Cruising, and I was well into that. I think I had gotten most of the interviews done because it's sort of the same format as the podcast, just interviewing fascinating cruisers like yourself, and then the world changed. How did you react when things shut down after starting up your brand? Not too long before that.
No.
So I had retired right before that. I had retired in December of 19, and so we had this big trip, basically around the world trip planned.
Literally around the world.
Yeah, literally around the world trip planned, not too dissimilar from what we just did, but we had all this planned and it's supposed to start in March. Well, we spent the first half of the year undoing everything that we had put together. And then we thought, well, what can we do? And we decided, you know what? Amtrak, our train system, is still operating. How about if we go and see some of our own country? So we basically jumped on segments of Amtrak and went from west to east coast and up and down the eastern seaboard. And we had,
Across the top.
yeah, we all over the place. Any route we could find that Amtrak was running, we basically cruised the rails.
Our channel's predominantly cruising, overwhelmingly so. But there are about 30 segments of Amtrak on there from 4 years ago. And it's good to once in a while look back on them. It's a great way to see the country. It's just not as fun as cruising.
Yeah, I'll have to check those out. What were a couple of highlights of your around the country train journey?
I mentioned earlier about Cunard having Art Deco decoration. One of the places in remote, this is a family show, really remote Missouri, northern Missouri, is a place called La Plata, Plata.
Uh-huh.
And La Plata has a small station that was operating, I want to say, through the 1940s. It's still operating, but it's not manned anymore, officially 9 to 5. They have a caretaker that shows up on the trains. But basically, one of the stops, if you're going from effectively the main route from Los Angeles to Chicago, everything on Amtrak pretty much goes through Chicago at one point. The one goes through probably an hour northeast of Kansas City is La Plata, and the station's old school Art Deco. That is just a beautiful, beautiful station. So we had talked to the caretaker long before we got there and arranged to do a tour of it. We have an isolated tour just of the station, and then it's also a larger tour of the whole cities, also on the channel is another video. But that La Plata was great. And then, as I said earlier, I'm kind of a history freak. So when we went up and down the eastern seaboard, we're going to Williamsburg in Virginia and old school colonial stuff, and Washington D.C. and New York, and it's just we ended up going through I guess Utica was the closest station. Albany, Utica, went to Cooperstown. We had to get a car to go in to actually get there, but just various places like that. And then the Rockies, another segment. That whole Eastern Seaboard thing is a 23 episode segment. It's the first one we did. But then we did one that's 7. It's basically the Rockies and the western part of the USA. And that was, the Sierra Nevada mountains and then the Rockies, and then basically down to Texas and back west across Texas and the Southwest essentially. But the Rockies are just amazing to take a train through. It's great scenery.
In Cooperstown, did you go to the Baseball Hall of Fame? Was it open?
Oh, yes, sir. That's why we went. 100%.
Yeah.
That was great.
I'll bet it wasn't too crowded.
No, and so that Cooperstown visit, that whole Amtrak thing started August of 20. So Cooperstown would have been probably the end of September of 20. So yeah, people are still full on masks. People are doing procedures, as we're all well versed in by now. And as long as you met the requirements and you spaced out the whole 6 feet or 2 meters thing, it was no problem. And again, like Holly said, we were still able to travel, albeit just a different format. Amtrak's policy at the time was, if you're in the public spaces, you got to have a mask on all the time. We had rented most of our segments. We had rented a room on the train so we could at least take the masks off when we were basically in our room. And that helps relieve that kind of monotony of, okay, here we are, we're gone for 45 days and we're wearing masks for the entire time. So we tried to do as much stuff outdoors as we could to I had no problem wearing masks and doing any of that thing that we had to do. Everybody had to do back then, but it got monotonous, of course.
You guys are smart. I have had conversations with a few U.S. Content creators or influencers or whatever, and they did similar things to you. They would go and do local, go to Washington D.C., go to the monuments and all of that, and they would point out, there might be 5 or 6 people at a place at a time. They went to somebody told me they went to a big condo place, and it was like 20 rooms taken. I in retrospect, I should have gotten out of the house. All I did was climb the walls. But if I could do it all over, and certainly don't want it to ever happen again in my lifetime or in anyone's lifetime. But if it ever happened again, that would be a good opportunity to do something other than cruising. And I just moped around about the fact that I couldn't cruise. When the pandemic ended, what was your first cruise back?
The end of June. It took us about 45 days. A lot of the people that I've mentioned, a lot of your listeners went on the very first cruise back. MSC Virtuosa around May of 21 out of, I think, Portsmouth or somewhere. We took about a month and a half to get back to cruising. We went on our first Viking Ocean at the time, and it was the end of June. It's basically a circle Bermuda. So it was easy enough to get to Bermuda. Obviously, you had all the requirements and the hoops to jump through, but we went as soon as we could. And yeah, so about 45 days we after the restrictions were lifted, we were gone.
So you didn't wait until it opened up out of the U.S.
In fact, based on predictions or guesswork, rolling the dice, as it were, we actually booked our next cruise. We booked she didn't know about it for a while, but I booked a cruise in April for the end of August and, was holding off on the final payment. It was a last minute booking, mind you, holding off on the final payment until cruising officially reopened, and which it did. So we went on that one. But no, a month before cruising officially resumed worldwide, we actually had one under booking. We were eager to get back, as many people were, I'm sure.
So a lot of cruise enthusiasts kind of hit the ground running when cruising opened up and made up for lost time. Were you among those, or did you ease back into it?
No, sir. I dare say we jumped in head first. After that, basically the first week of July, we were in Bermuda. That cruise I'd booked back in April. 2 months later, at the end of August, we were that was our first Seabourn. So we did a back-to-back couple of 7 days, basically the Greek Isles for 2 weeks. And then after that, that's September of 21. After that, the next cruise was January of 22, a couple weeks on Princess in the Caribbean, and it just kept going from there. So it's once cruising resumed, since cruising has been back in around May of 21, I don't think we've gone more than 4 months without one, some quite a bit sooner, shorter in between.
Other than your 120-day grand cruise, what have you cruised recently?
Well, let's see, right before that, we did a Caribbean cruise on Azamara. And then prior to that would be Galapagos.
Before Galapagos?
Yeah.
That would have been Sky Norway.
Right, Sky Norway.
June of 22 was going in backwards order. That was, no, we're talking about 23. 23. So.
Oh, right. Yeah.
23 would have been.
Oh, was that the Oceania? Oceania and Seabourn. So, yeah.
Over Europe.
Fair amount.
Now, I know that Antarctica cruise, you said that was your all-time favorite. What's your favorite cruise line? Now, I know
Yes, sir.
Holly is, I think I heard you say Viking's your vibe.
Yeah, that's my jam.
How about you?
Viking also, but by a narrow margin than Holly's. My taking value for money out of the equation, which is not really realistic, Seabourn's my second favorite, but if on a day-to-day affordability thing, Oceania's actually would be my second favorite. They're quite awesome.
Talk about your various platforms. I know you're on Facebook, YouTube, I think is your main outlet, and then Instagram.
Okay, the main outlet certainly is YouTube. I'll come back to that. We have a couple of years ago, we started a Facebook group, went against advice, again, from the Cruise Monkeys. God love Gavin. Maybe recommended we start out with a page and grow a following and that sort of thing. Well, we wanted interaction. We wanted to start a forum where people could come in and post their own content and interact, just like any other group site. So we went headfirst into starting a group page and Facebook group. Got to watch the names. We started a Facebook group that's been going for probably about 3 years now, doing it on our own. And we also very, very recently maybe 3-4 months ago, started a Facebook page. The Instagram for us has basically replaced blogging. We used to have a website 4 years ago and used to maintain that. And for us, we really never built that up after the pandemic kicked in. For us, very visual. So I'll do, 8-10 pictures on Instagram, but I'll also include writing on most of the occasions, not all, where it's not just, hey, here's where we're at. Here's what we did, kind of like a daily blog of it, giving some context to the pictures that people are seeing. So we really do treat Instagram like it was a blog. And YouTube is just what it is. It's our distribution method for anybody who has insomnia and they want to watch one of our videos. So it's just a great way to share what we do with people.
Have you tried TikTok yet?
No, sir.
No.
We have not.
Increasingly, influencers or creators, I always say those together because now it's kind of hard to identify what people consider themselves as. But increasingly, influencers and content creators are offering group cruises. Is that something Innocents Abroad has done, or do you see that in your future?
We have not done that. I really don't see it in our future. I think that although we like traveling with other people, I don't want to, shoehorn people into going on one itinerary. If they want to go on an itinerary with us, great. But I just feel like I don't know.
I'd be that spreadsheet guy. I think I touched on that earlier. I'd have everything hyper organized and it sounds great. And it sounds like a great self pat on the shoulder, but it wouldn't be fun. It's like, here's this meeting. Here's Gary's very organized. I give him props for that, but it was not, do your own thing. Here's all this stuff available. Here's a list of everything that's available. Come and go as you please. And I want to do that, but then the organization structure needed to do it as well as Gary did it would be, and I know Paul and Carol have a massive one coming up. I want to be able to enjoy a vacation. I don't want it ever, as I said earlier, it's first and foremost, everything we film, everything we go on is a family vacation first. YouTube is a very close second. I don't want it to be work, and which is one reason we're kind of a small channel. I don't want it to be work. I want to be able to enjoy and just chill and do whatever. So I don't see running ours. The best group cruise we've been on is one that was an official group cruise. We were in Sky Princess in Norway in June of 22, and Paul and Carol were there, the Cruise Monkeys, the Cruise Boys, dear friends of ours, Alfie and Jackie, who sadly has now passed on. This core group, and a few others were there, but this core group of people, like, oh, you're going here? Hey, you mind if I join? No, whatever. Everybody showed up to this particular itinerary. It was not a group cruise. There was zero structure. And I learned a lot about time lapsing from Carol. She taught me how to time lapse on the GoPro. I had no clue how to do it. But the people asking each other for advice, but then going separate ways and doing their thing. And nobody was clingy. It was an unofficial group cruise because everybody filmed it in a different style. Everybody looked at each other's content and you got something out of it from different techniques. But even having said that, none of it, absolutely none of it, thankfully, was about making useful connections or using ones you already had. This was about a bunch of friends getting together and doing their thing. And it was the best group cruise, although it wasn't one in name, that I think we've ever had.
So you've alluded to your various platforms. How can listeners follow Innocents Abroad on social media?
I think the easiest way to point them to a single place would be more of a holding center where it's got all the links. If people go to YouTube, go to our YouTube channel, and which is obviously just Innocents Abroad, go to our YouTube channel and look at effectively the homepage, where depending on how YouTube runs their software, it used to be an info page or an about page, but it's basically at the top of most people's homepage on YouTube these days. People can put links in there, and Facebook group, Facebook page, Instagram, those three are right there. So the easiest way for everybody, they don't even have to watch a video. The easiest way for people to find the other socials is to go look at the links on YouTube and just click and they're done. They're right there instantly.
Let's talk about the future. So you have 7 cruises booked. Share the details with us.
Yee.
Holly, go ahead.
Oh yeah, like I don't remember all these. I think the next one we have coming up is in November. We're doing a Christmas market river cruise on Amma, where you try Amma for the first time.
That
And then we're
on the Danube. On the Danube.
now that brings up a question. So I don't mean to interrupt you, Holly, but is this your first river cruise?
No. We've done 2 Viking river cruises. We did a Christmas market one
For
in
December of 14.
and then we also did in Eastern Europe. So that was Bucharest to Budapest, which was fascinating.
All the old school communist areas from back in the day.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
That was Viking also?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It was.
Okay.
So yeah, we're trying.
And so the one you have booked, you say is Amma.
Yes. So we're going to try them for the first time. And then because we're not gone long enough, we need, we put another Cunard Queen Victoria on the tail end of it.
That's some friends are joining us for that cruise. So we'll get to hang out with them for 11 nights, which we're really, really looking forward to. So.
Yeah, and then following that in April, we previously mentioned we're trying MSC for the first time. And then from there, we're going to do, I think you're going to take it from here. I don't remember the rest.
So actually at the moment,
That's
a lot.
let me interrupt. That's a nice problem to have.
Yes, it is.
What do you have? What do you have coming up? And you can only name half of it.
Well, gee, I for some odd reason, I've got all the dates in my head. If it's a past cruise, I can at least tell you the month and year. But I would know the dates of actually everything we have booked. It's just really important stuff. Not paying the mortgage, not making sure your car's got oil in it, but what are the dates of your cruises specifically? The really important, life-changing stuff that I still haven't memorized. After MSC, we actually at present have a 9-month gap to the next cruise, and that would be Gary's next group cruise in January of 26 for. It's a Trans-Canal where we're coming. It's Miami. I don't know what it is. Miami to San Diego. So everybody gets to sail with us and come to our own home. And then something I'm looking forward to the most out of all of that after the Christmas cruise, we're spending about a month in Japan. We have two back-to-back cruises, Singapore to Japan. And then once we get there, we're doing sort of a southern Japan sort of circle immersion thing. So it's back to back with Celebrity that'll keep us in Japan for about a month. And then as one does, instead of east,
which ship?
That's Millennium.
Which Celebrity
Millennium.
Okay.
Celebrity Millennium.
Okay. I've been on that one.
Yeah, so we. And then you'd think you'd fly home to Cali eastbound from Japan. No, that would be too simple. We're actually going to go back to London to join Paul and Carol's group cruise in April of 26. So from Tokyo, we have about 5 days to get to theirs. And right now, April of 26 is the last one. We're figuring out how to get home. Do we do a TA or just fly? So no, it's more madness is rearing its head.
So when's your Amma cruise?
That is the 24th of November to the 1st of December. The Budapest to Vilshofen, but basically Munich. River near Munich.
Well, I'll be able to tell you a little bit about what to expect from Amma because I am going on my very first river cruise on Amma in like 7 days.
Oh, how exciting!
Where are you going, Paul?
Yeah, France. It's Amma Christina. So we do 7 days, a 7-day river cruise, and then 3 days. Then this is, part of the package. 3 days in Paris.
Nice.
That'll
be lovely.
Yeah. So
nice.
for someone who's been to so many exotic places and on so many nice cruise lines, do you even have a cruise bucket list? What's on your bucket list?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, what's the UN say? There's about 186, 190 countries. I think we've only been to about 65. Yes, sir, we do. You want to take that first?
Yeah, we both have kind of our own running top 3 that we haven't been to yet bucket list. And for me, my top one is Switzerland. I have always wanted to go to Switzerland. It always looks so charming, but not too many cruise lines go there. So it's going to have to be, basically a direct. We'll have to figure out how to get there unless we do a river cruise, which is now the question. There's a lovely river cruise from Switzerland to Amsterdam.
Yeah. I got to get that lemonade stand started, Paul.
But second on my list is South Africa. That's, I think, it just looks very mystic and very different from any place we've ever gone. And why not? And finally, my third one is South Pacific. We haven't been to the South Pacific. And that's another island tropical chain that looks very intriguing to me.
Well, I have, although they've been decidedly different types of ships.
Yeah.
Yeah. I share two of Holly's, but in slightly different order. Our bucket list is with the caveat that we haven't been there yet. Mine is, the top of that list is South Africa, but not just the country, but the whole eastern seaboard. So, Mozambique, Madagascar, I got to go check out the lemurs, as well as South Africa itself. I would love to do that, basically southeastern portion of the African continent. We've been to Africa before, but only Morocco, so this would be decidedly different. My second one is Svalbard, however it's pronounced. So we've been to, I've never been to the Arctic. We've been to Antarctica, not Arctic. I'd love to go up to Svalbard and Greenland and check that stuff out, but that's stupid money too, so that may just be on a bucket list perpetually. And then my third top of the top three would be the same South Pacific that she wants to do. And so we're taking a look at that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
This has been great. Before we let you go, I like to close the podcast with a couple of light questions, even fun questions. So the first one, it's kind of a softball question. It's really for me because I try a lot of things as a result of answers to this question. So, what's your favorite cruise drink or cruise food?
Oh, well, I like to, when I cruise, try things that I wouldn't normally do at home. I'm not a big drinker at home, so I tend to indulge my little Bailey's habit. An iced coffee with a shot of Bailey's.
Don't lie to Paul's listeners. You have doubles all the time.
But a nice coffee with Bailey's is just perfect for me. Food wise, again, I try to eat things that I wouldn't ordinarily prepare at home. And I think probably lobster would be on the top of that list. It's not something that I typically prepare at home. Kind of fish as well. I don't cook a lot of fish, so I'll try different fishes on cruise lines.
For me, it's
if you like. Oh, sorry, Mark.
No, go ahead.
If you like Bailey's, one that I picked up, in one of these with one of these questions is a mudslide.
Oh yes, those are deadly too. Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
For me, it's basically red. Merlot or Malbec are usually my jam, or port wine. And I'm constantly, I say constantly sounds like a melush. That's my evening. That's my evening jam. Just sitting in the lounge, chilling, and have the barman keep bringing the Malbecs. The food, just a good steak, whether it's on Viking, which has an excellent Italian restaurant that actually serves steaks, or I dare say my favorite would be Princess's Crown Grill. That's in my opinion, that's probably the best overall steakhouse at sea. And just a steak and some red wine, and I'm in a happy spot.
All right. Next question. What's your most memorable or funniest or even most embarrassing cruise or port experience?
Well, for me, it sounds like a broken record. I'm going to go back to Antarctica, specifically of all the episodes, of all the experiences we had in Antarctica. I don't forget what episode it is, 8, I think. There's an island called Peterman Island. And of all the sea life and the penguins that we encountered, our experience on Peterman Island is the highlight of that cruise for me. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of penguins all over, but it's the proximity Now, the international community down there, and you got to stand at least 15 feet away. But if they come to you and you don't have a safe place to egress to get away, then let them walk right by you. So that's fun, but it's just the nature and the visuals and the fact that there are really cute penguins there. It's just very, very heartwarming. It's something I'll never forget, even if I didn't have video to look at. How about you?
Well, mine's more on the embarrassing scale.
Which one?
Yeah, which one? So Bob likes
Which one?
Bob likes to plan.
Well, it depends on how much time you have. Yeah, go ahead.
Bob likes to plan surprises, and one particular cruise we were on in South America, he had coordinated with the cruise director because it was going to be over my birthday, and on my birthday they had something that they do called
Azamara.
As Amazing Evenings, where they would bus everybody to a gorgeous theater and put on a fantastic, cultural show. Well, when we were at this theater, the cruise director had the entire theater sing happy birthday to me.
400 people in Montevideo, as one does.
And somebody that doesn't like to be the center of attention, that was just mortifying to me.
Yeah, that's just one example, but I love setting up surprises like that. I'd worked on this for like 5 months, so with the cruise director. So it's, that was fun.
So, yeah, it was definitely memorable.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound embarrassing. It sounds very touching. Very nice, very nice, Bob.
You didn't see the look that I got. Yeah, that was fun.
For you.
Yeah.
The final question, it's I call this an oddball question. Oddball only in that it doesn't necessarily relate to cruising. So first of all, you have a large following, and so welcome to the many Bob and Holly fans listening.
All 25 of you.
You named 25 people from UK alone.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Okay, maybe 30.
I hope you have enjoyed what you've heard on the Joy of Cruising podcast, and we'll come back to listen to other episodes. Bob and Holly, share one thing that my listeners and your followers don't know about Bob and Holly.
Well, I thought about that, and that's a little hard, but most of your listeners, there are a few people that know this, so I can't answer the question verbatim, but I might be one of the few Americans that calls football what it is, what Americans might call soccer. And during the season, which literally starts tomorrow and runs through every May, I get up at 4:30 in the morning on a Saturday to make coffee because she's getting up for support. I get up and watch the Premier League, which is in England. And I'm just watching football or soccer for 2-3 hours, and then my editing starts. So that's kind of I wouldn't even say it's a labor of love, but I do like to watch my British football from time to time. And it's just, nothing to do with cruising, nothing to do with YouTube. It's just fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty boring otherwise, but I think for me, some of our listeners and followers might know that I'm an amateur cookie decorator. Every Christmas I try to, decorate cookies and send them globally to some of our close friends, which is, that keeps me busy when we're not cruising.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, thank you, Bob and Holly, for coming on the Joy of Cruising podcast. You have some wonderful cruises coming up, and you have an unbelievable bucket list. So I know that you will be back if you will come back. I've enjoyed hearing you, and I've added some. Every show, it seems, I add things to my bucket list. I'm trying to check some things off, but I've added a couple to my bucket list just from listening to you all today. But please come back on the show and share some of your wonderful travels with us. All the best to Innocents Abroad. And as I like to say, we'll see you on the ocean.
Thanks for having us.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99, can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.